I'm going to start off by looking a little bit at this still life. Again, this still life is the same from Tuesday, and yours will be the same as well. You might have to freshen up the leaves a little bit because they will die if you leave them set up. But anyways, I wanted you to see this because the time I have to draw this is a fraction of time that you'll have. So I'm only going to show you this particular area. And with this, I want you to take notice to it, because once I start drawing, you're not going to be able to see the still life at all. So what will happen is I'm going to draw this pair that's going back in space. For me, I see a little bit of the side. So I'm going to watch these plane breaks on here a little bit, which I'll talk about. I'm going to connect it to this pair and maybe a little bit to the vase and possibly to this apple. So I'm only going to get the opportunity to do very little of this for you. So with that in mind, up here, I just started this just a little bit ago, so you can see what's up there. This is a lot different than what we did before. What I did is started with a little bit of a heavier line, a broken line. I worked with a sharp, dark edge and gradated it in. So in other words, edges, I can start sharp and I can gradate them in a little bit. It suggests that form. Like when I do that, this sharpness is gone on the inside, so it shows form. I could gradate that out in the other direction like this. And now the sharpness is on the inside, but those are gradated edges. And we want this to remain a line drawing with line variation, but we can suggest that planes. So in here, I'm showing the back of the pear, as you already saw from the still life. I put a light gray. This gray in here and the dark center, I'm making it a little darker than probably I want you to make it, because I want the line to be the most outstanding. I put another plane here. I know you can't see the pear, but the pear angles under, so I put a little suggestion of a plane to turn it. And I'm keeping my line here incredibly fuzzy because I do want it to tie together with the space around it. So I'm leaving broken lines. Here I made the line incredibly sharp because it's kind of suggesting the connection to the dark of the leaf. I'm using a shadow here, but very little, like I showed you in the print. I'm wanting this to be, again, mostly line. This line, which it is a line, is lighter than that line, but I use a little shading. This leaf, I'm varying the edge to it. Here it doesn't exist, but what I do want to do and show you is put a gradation from the seam of this leaf. What I want to do is use a plane in here and gradate this up a little bit like this, just to show the angle of it. So as all of you know with planes, if I use an angle here, it'll start to show that it goes up. It's an angle, and it's connected sharply to the stem. So I can bring this up, and I can put a little bit of value in there like that, and it gives it some variation, and it gives the viewer a little idea of what's happening. So anyways, this stem is going to cut across. I'm going to let it go through it and around, and on this side I'm going to get the line heavier. I'm going to vary it ever so little, and I'm going to bring it, which way am I going to bring it? So I'm going to bring it through this way. I'm going to vary it. I might connect a little leaf there. On this side, I'm going to put this side of it. I'm going to keep it very broken and open, so these points kind of connect and link together. This separates. So I'm going to keep watching what I might want to separate, what I want to link together. So off of this stick, and then I've got an end to it like this. So I'm just going to end it very much like that. This one is coming over that. I'm going to use a series of a few dark little edges in there, so this becomes just a little bit darker. These are known as negative spaces, and they're nice to experiment with and to play with. So what I'm going to do now is connect another pair. So I'm going to watch my edges here, and I'm going to look at this edge. I'm going to start like you will. I'm going to start light and until I get it figured out, because this is a little different than our gesture drawings. We're doing these things we're just putting the shapes together. So I'm going to make it probably about as big as that. I'm going to keep this side kind of dark. As it melts, I'm going to use a really thick line in here. And again, your lines can be really thick as well. I'm going to bring it up. I'm going to adjust it as I go. Now that I see what I'm doing, I'm going to make this just a little smaller. So that's probably a good size for the bottom of it. Now I'm going to come up with my top part as a pear would be. So I'm going to do it this way. I know I'm keeping my line pretty light in places. I am going to come with a cleaner line here in a minute. And I'm going to show a little bit of the top plane of this. So again, I'm going to use a little bit of a plane, a surface, to suggest at this top like this. Once I have it in there, again, you can use much detail. The stem on this side, I'm going to keep it thinner. This is where it would sit into the top of this pear. And then the inside of this is going to be like this. I'm going to keep it incredibly thick. And I'm going to vary it and look at shapes. Watch shapes. They're so important. This is going to come around. I'm going to look at the stem. And again, I'm looking down on it. This side, I'm going to keep very thin. So now we've got a top to it. So it feels like it's coming off the top. And so I'm going to gradate this just a little bit to show a top piece. So you might be able to see it in there a little bit. So it gives us a little bit of the reality of what's going on. I'm going to keep that line broken. I am going to pick this up, strengthen this edge, and in here I'm going to use a lost edge and let it connect. So I'm just going to let this connect. I think I would like this better if I brought this around and brought a cleaner edge through it. Okay. So here I'm going to leave like that. And I'm going to, these, by keeping a light line here, you can see these connect together. Okay. So wherever you have your light edges, this now connects to this connects to this connects to this. So I'm going to place a leaf in here. And I'm going to put a little bit of a stem, and that's connecting to my main branch, let's say. And this leaf got some interesting edges. I'm going to let it come up against there, overlap it a little bit. So I'm going to let it do that. I'm going to put a little bit of detail in here. There is a shadow on the table from underneath. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to thicken this line quite a bit. And from underneath here, there's a shadow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a little bit of a shape, a negative space. The negative space can be nice because it can bring out the positive of the branch. So I am going to use a plane under here, connect it. I'm going to use a shadow off the table here. And I'm going to use a very, very, very light gray at its edge and gradate it back. Okay. I'm going to keep this a little bit light. I'm going to put a plane on my leaf in here. I'm going to use a shape. Again, it's predominantly a line drawing, but we can use some shapes like that. Okay. Now, on the vase, I'm going to do a little more of this before I stop, and I think you guys get the idea. I'm going to place this vase in. And on this side, it's going to start about here. And I'm only going to show you the bottom part of it, because I know it'll probably run off. So on this side, I'm going to pick up a line a little stronger, a little thicker. So I'm going to try to watch my dark, so this dark to this dark to this dark, and then I'm going to use a little bit of a shadow on the vase that I see of the pear, and it's going to be real faint. So these shadow shapes that I'm looking at are much stronger and much darker in reality, but we're going to keep it like a little bit of a line around it. I'm going to just connect these parts together. So again, we're going to keep them very subtle. I'm going to show you one more part, a little more of this, and I'm going to use a leaf on this side. So let's take the front of the leaf. Take your time with these again. Watch edges. I think I'll keep this light. And I'm going to try to make it a little darker on this side, but keep thinking of line variation, much line variation. So we're going to place a leaf in there, and we're going to use very little shadow outside of it, just because it's sitting on the table the way that I have them. It's one way I can connect shapes together. Okay. This way I'm gonna gradate the edge a little bit this time, going down. And I don't see this connected, but I'm going to connect it. So wherever you can connect things, it's nice too. There's some nice little shadow shapes that move around in here that could add for variation to the negative space I have. If you see things like that, use them. I'm going to put the last thing I'm going to do to this drawing is I'm going to put a leaf coming in this direction. Okay, and I'm going to try to keep that light, and if we had a little more time, I would develop a little more of a series of darker lines on this side. Do this branch, I would gradate this out into this space. Again, there's a gradation, a sharp edge, and it would come up against another leaf that's here. Anyways, I'm going to leave this like this, and your drawing will have a nice variation to the edge. Again, with yours, it'll be a complete drawing, of course. So if this was a complete drawing, once I would be able to go back into it, and I would try to look at it and say, I want this and this and this and this to connect, but I do want it to separate a little more here. I do have leaves there. If I had time, I would start to get these leaves a little darker, so these darks would start to connect with those darks, and then these lights would start to bind together. So I would start to think a little more about the line character on this side and breaking it down a little more and keeping the lines ultimately a little darker in light of what I did with the connection with the pairs. So as this would get just a little bit darker, not much. Again, I'm using a little bit of a plane, and they got to be kept subtle. But as these darks would connect to those, this opens up and helps my passages in order to connect the drawing together. So have fun drawing, and again, spend as much time on these as you can. You have no homework assignment, so I'm expecting this drawing to become longer than just a classroom assignment. So do a nice job with them and then send them to me.